The Suitcase in the Dark. Let me take you back to a night I'll never shake off. It was sometime around the holidays, late December, I think, when the air gets that sharp bite and the roads feel lonelier than usual. I'd just left my buddy's place, a little house tucked way out in the sticks, about an hour from where I crash. I'd been over there hanging out, catching up, maybe having a beer or two, nothing wild. But by the time I hit the road, it was pushing 1 or 2 a.m. I can't pin it down exactly. My brain was fuzzy, my eyelids heavy, and honestly, I was half tempted to just crash on his lumpy couch. Problem was, work wasn't going to wait for me in the morning, and calling out wasn't an option. So, there I was, behind the wheel, fighting sleep with the radio cranked up, some random playlist humming through the speakers to keep me sharp. The drive was mostly through these endless farmlands, big, flat stretches of nothing but dirt and crops, the kind of place where you don't see another soul for miles. My headlights cut through the dark, lighting up the cracked pavement ahead, and I just zoned out, staring at the road, letting the music fill the silence. About 20 minutes in, though, something snapped me out of it. My beams caught this weird shape smack in the middle of the lane. I squinted, eased off the gas, and then slammed the brakes harder than I meant to, tires squealing a little on the asphalt. It was a suitcase. Not just any suitcase, a full-on, upright, closed-up piece of luggage, standing there like it was waiting for a bus. I sat there, engine idling, staring at it way longer than I should have. My tired mind was spinning, trying to make sense of it. Who leaves a suitcase in the middle of nowhere like that? And how the hell did it end up standing straight up? I wasn't about to get out and play detective, not at that hour, not out there. So, I flicked on my blinker, like it mattered with no one around, and swung into the opposite lane, giving it a wide berth. As I rolled past, I kept stealing glances at it in my rear view. It didn't budge, just stood there, a dark silhouette against the road. I figured it must have tumbled off someone's truck, landed just right by some freak chance. What else could it be? I shook my head, chalked it up to late-night weirdness, and kept driving. For a few minutes, I couldn't stop thinking about it, picturing some poor guy realizing his vacation gear was gone. But then the road swallowed my attention again, and it faded from my mind. The quiet stretched on, fields blurring by, the hum of my tires blending with the music. Maybe 5 minutes later, my headlights picked up something else. This time, it was bigger. A truck, parked dead center in my lane. No lights, no hazards, nothing. Just a hulking shadow. If I hadn't had my high beams on, I might have plowed right into it. I hit the brakes again, softer this time, and rolled to a stop maybe 20 feet back. I leaned forward, peering through the windshield. The truck didn't move. No sign of life. I gave the horn a couple quick taps, short, sharp blasts echoing into the night. Nothing. No flicker of brake lights, no shadows shifting inside. I waited, counting the seconds in my head. 30 ticked by and still zilch. Creeped out but too tired to overthink it. I edged into the oncoming lane again, easing around the truck. As I passed, I caught a better look. Dents and scratches scarred the driver's side. Big, ugly marks that could have been fresh or years old. Hard to tell in the dark. More unsettling, though, was the cab. I craned my neck, trying to spot someone, anyone, behind the wheel. The windows were black voids, but even with my lights slicing through, I couldn't make out a single shape. No driver, no passenger, nobody. I pulled ahead, swung back into my lane, and slowed to a crawl, glancing around. Nothing but farmland in every direction, endless rows of crops under a starless sky. Why would someone ditch a truck out here? No houses, no turnoffs, no nothing. A chill crawled up my spine, and I felt this gnawing unease settle in my gut. Something wasn't right. I pressed the gas, telling myself to shake it off. Whatever was going on, I didn't want any part of it. The suitcase popped back into my head. Was it tied to this somehow? Two random things blocking the road in the middle of nowhere? My brain was too fried to connect the dots, but I was wide awake now, adrenaline kicking the drowsiness clean out of me. I kept rolling, eyes flicking to the mirrors, half expecting something to pop up behind me. And then, not even a minute later, it happened again. My lights hit a figure, human this time, standing right in my lane, arms flailing like he was trying to flag me down. I stomped the brakes, tires skidding, and stopped maybe 10 feet short of him. He was a mess. Early 40s, wild hair sticking out everywhere, clothes rumpled like he'd been through hell. Cuts and scrapes crisscrossed his hands and arms, glowing red in my headlights. He shuffled toward my window, a shaky grin splitting his face. I cracked it an inch, just enough to hear him. "Hey, man," he said, voice rough. "Did you see a truck back that way?" I nodded slow, sizing him up. "Yeah, I did. What's it doing parked out there? And what are you doing out here?" Fair questions, right? Guy's standing in the road at 2 a.m., looking like he just crawled out of a ditch. He fumbled his words, tripping over himself before spitting out, "Oh, ran out of gas. Was walking to find a station." I frowned. That didn't add up. If his truck was dead, why ask me to drive him back to it? Wouldn't he want to lift to the gas? Before I could call him on it, he kept rambling, words tumbling out too fast, like he was scared I'd think too hard. I opened my mouth, fumbling for a polite way to say hell no, when my eyes drifted past him. Something glinted off to the side, buried in the crops. I squinted. Holy crap, it was a car. The tail end of a small sedan, half swallowed by the stalks, one rear light catching my beams. My stomach dropped. This wasn't some random breakdown. This was bad. The guy caught me staring, and his grin vanished. His eyes went wide, wild, and he lunged at the window, banging on the glass with meaty fists. Hey, wait," he yelled, voice cracking. I didn't think, just slammed the window up, threw the car into gear, and peeled out, gravel spitting behind me. He kept shouting, but I didn't look back. My hands shook as I fumbled for my phone, dialing 911 with one eye on the road. I blurted it all out to the dispatcher, the suitcase, the truck, the guy, the car, and the crops. They told me to keep driving, stay safe. They'd handle it. By the time the cops got there, the truck was gone. Poof, vanished. But that car and the crops? Still there. And what they found inside, man, it was worse than I could have guessed. The driver, some poor soul, was dead. Not from a wreck, either. They'd been murdered, likely by that guy I'd dodged. The cops figured he'd used the suitcase and truck as bait, a sick trap to get people to stop, maybe to hitch a ride, maybe to rob them, maybe worse. The other driver hadn't been as lucky as me. They'd stopped, let him in, and that was it. The guy was never caught, never ID'd. Just a ghost who almost had me too. I'm 32 now, work for a trucking company, hauling loads across state lines. That night stuck with me, though. Driving in winter's always a grind. Roads slick, nights long, but after that, I don't mess around. I keep my eyes peeled, my doors locked, and I don't stop for anything, or anyone, unless I damn well know it's safe. Out there in the dark, you never know what's waiting. Winter driving's a beast, especially when you're hauling freight for a living. I'm 32, been with a trucking company for a while now, crisscrossing states with loads that can't wait. This particular night was around the holidays, late December, when the cold sinks into your bones and the roads turn into a gamble. I'd left town at 6 p.m., rolling out with a delivery 2 states over. The plan was simple: drive through the night, make my drop, and crash somewhere with a bed. By 11 p.m., I was beat, eyes burning, shoulders stiff, so I pulled into this little truck stop off the highway. Nothing fancy, just a squat building with a flickering neon sign, a couple pumps, and a parking lot big enough for a handful of rigs. I needed a bathroom break, a coffee, and maybe 10 minutes to shut my eyes. I parked my semi near the edge of the lot, away from the 2 other trucks idling closer to the building. The snow was just starting to dust the ground, tiny flakes swirling in my headlights as I cut the engine. I hopped out, boots crunching on the gravel, and shuffled inside. The place was dead, some bored clerk flipping through a magazine, a stale coffee pot hissing on the counter. I did my business, grabbed a cup of black sludge that tasted like burnt rubber, and headed back to my rig. The caffeine was more for my nerves than my taste buds. I climbed into the cab, settled into the driver's seat, and took a moment to breathe. Sipping the coffee, I scanned the lot. Quiet night. Just those two other trucks, their exhaust puffing into the chill, and the snow picking up a little. That's when I noticed him. Over by the back of the building, where the sodium lights barely reached, there was this guy. He was leaning against the wall, half in shadow, staring out toward the lot. I couldn't see his face, just a vague shape, maybe a hoodie, but I got this feeling he was looking right at me. My truck was the only thing parked out this way. There wasn't much else to gawk at. I brushed it off. Probably some drifter killing time, waiting for a ride or a smoke. I took another sip, letting the warmth chase off the unease, but every time I glanced back, he was still there. Same spot, same stare. It prickled the back of my neck, but I told myself I was being paranoid. Long hauls mess with your head sometimes. The snow was coming down steadier now, sticking to the windshield in little clumps. I figured I'd better get moving before it got worse. I tossed the cup into the holder, fired up the engine, and rumbled out of the lot. The guy didn't move, just watched me go, a dark smudge in my side mirror. I hit the highway, the coffee kicking in, keeping my eyes peeled as the road stretched out empty ahead. For the next half hour or so, it was just me, the hum of the tires, and the snowflakes dancing in my beams. Then, out of nowhere, I caught a flash in my driver's side mirror, a quick glint, like light bouncing off metal. I flicked my eyes to the glass, expecting a car coming up fast. Nothing, just the black ribbon of road trailing behind my trailer. Maybe a busted reflector on the pavement? I shrugged it off, kept rolling. The snow thickened, piling up on the shoulders, turning the drive into a slow grind. I gripped the wheel tighter, focusing on the lane markers fading under the white. An hour ticked by, maybe more, my mind locked on staying steady. Then it happened again, another glint in the mirror, sharper this time. I jerked my head to check, and for a split second, I saw it. A car, right on my tail. Not just close, way too close, tucked so tight behind my trailer I couldn't even see its front end in the mirrors. No headlights, either. It was a ghost, only popping into view when it drifted slightly to the side, my own beams catching its grille for a heartbeat before it vanished again. I've had tailgaters before, impatient jerks who think a rig's some kind of roadblock. But this was nuts. In a snowstorm, no lights, hugging my bumper like that. My pulse kicked up. What were they doing? I held my lane for a minute, watching, waiting for them to pass or back off. They didn't. Finally, I swung into the left lane, slow and deliberate, giving them room to blow by. They followed, mirroring me like a shadow. Okay, that's weird. I merged back right, and this time, they stayed left, easing off, slowing down, until they faded into the dark. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. No clue what their deal was, but good riddance. The road stayed empty after that, just me in the snow for another 2 hours. It was pushing 3 a.m., and I was running on fumes, mental and physical. I spotted a rest area up ahead, one of those bare-bones pull-offs with no facilities, just a patch of pavement for a couple rigs. Perfect. I nosed in, killed the engine, and reclined the seat all the way back. The wind whispered outside, snow tapping the roof, lulling me under fast. I've slept in worse spots. You get used to grabbing rest where you can. I figured I'd catch a few hours, wake up when the sun peaked over the horizon. I don't know how long I was out. Maybe an hour, maybe less, when something yanked me awake. My eyes cracked open, groggy, the cab still dark except for the faint glow of highway lights filtering through the snow-crusted windows. I shifted, ready to roll over and chase sleep again, when I froze. There, right outside my driver's side window, was a face. wide, unblinking eyes staring in at me, pale and hollow-looking, like something out of a nightmare. My heart slammed into my ribs. I jolted up so fast I nearly tumbled off the seat. The guy didn't flinch, just kept staring, those creepy eyes locked on mine. Then, slow as death, he stepped down from the running board and yanked at the door handle. Once, twice, 3 times, hard, desperate tugs. It was locked, thank God, but the sound echoed in the cab like gunfire. Before I could shout, he bolted. I heard his boots crunching through the snow, fast and sloppy, fading into the night. My hands were shaking as I grabbed the CB radio, fumbling the mic to call for help. Hey, this is a trucker at the rest stop off mile marker 87. Someone just tried to get into my cab. My voice cracked, but I didn't care. As I spat out the details, headlights flared behind me. A car peeling out from the shadows of the pull-off, tires spinning in the snow. It was that car, the one from the road, the tailgater with no lights. I caught a glimpse as it roared past. Dark sedan, no plates I could make out, gone in seconds. Cops showed up maybe 20 minutes later, blue lights cutting through the storm. I walked them through it all. The guy at the truck stop, the car shadowing me, the face at my window. They poked around, found some tracks in the snow leading off toward the trees, but the trail went cold fast. No sign of the car, either. It had vanished into the night. As we talked, it hit me. That figure leaning against the wall back at the stop, watching me. Same build, same vibe. Could have been him the whole time, trailing me from there, waiting for his shot. But why? To rob me? Jack my load? Or something worse? The cops didn't have answers, just told me to lock up tight and report anything else odd. I didn't sleep after that. Sat there till dawn, engine idling, eyes on every shadow. Never found out who he was or what he wanted. I still haul freight, still drive those lonely winter nights, but now I check my mirrors twice as hard. Out there, in the snow and the dark, you're on your own, and sometimes something's watching. I was 16 when this happened, still wet behind the ears and stoked about my first real gig. I'd been slinging pizzas at this little joint in town for about 6 months, saving every dime I could scrape together. My big win? A beat-up old car, nothing flashy, just a rusty bucket with a decent engine. I'd bought it so I could ditch the in-shop grunt work and start running deliveries instead. Driving around, radio on, dropping off pies, it sounded way better than scrubbing counters or answering phones. This night, though, flipped that dream upside down and left me wondering how I even made it out. It was a regular weekday, sometime in the fall, cool enough for a hoodie but not freezing. I clocked in after school at 5 p.m., scheduled to roll out at 10:30. The place was hopping early, phones ringing off the hook, ovens roaring, the usual chaos. By 8, though, it died down fast, like someone flipped a switch. No orders, no bustle, just me and the crew killing time. Then, at 9 sharp, a delivery popped up on the screen. 2 medium pizzas, online order, heading to some address I didn't recognize. I grabbed the boxes, tossed them in my passenger seat, and peeled out. The streets weren't busy, just a few cars drifting by under the streetlights. 5 minutes in, I noticed the sedan pull out from a side road behind me. Nothing weird yet. I barely gave it a thought. The address was out past the main drag, where the town starts thinning into woods and scattered houses. The sedan stayed on my tail, close but not pushy. Empty roads like that, they could have passed me easy. I wasn't exactly flooring it, but they didn't. I shrugged it off. People drive weird sometimes. 10 minutes later, I hooked a ride into this quiet neighborhood. Big lots, trees everywhere. Houses spaced out like they didn't want neighbors. I glanced in my rear view after the turn, and sure enough, those headlights swung in behind me a few seconds later. Same destination? It's a small world, I guess, but that little coincidence stuck in my head. I started paying attention. The road wound deeper into the woods, mailboxes popping up here and there. Some houses sat right on the pavement. Others hid down long driveways swallowed by pines. My beams finally caught the right number on a weathered box, and I turned in a narrow gravel path, maybe 200 feet long, cutting through the trees. I checked my mirror again as I rolled up. The sedan cruised past, headlights fading down the road. I let out a dumb little laugh. Guess I'd been jumpy for nothing. I parked near the house, a plain one-story deal with a sagging porch. Grabbing the pizzas, I hopped out, the gravel crunching under my sneakers, and gave the door a couple knocks. Porch light was on, but the windows were dark. No answer. I waited, shifting my weight, then knocked again, harder. Nothing for like 30 seconds, then a faint glow flicked on inside, and the door creaked open. This lady answered, early 30s maybe, wrapped in a nightgown, looking like she'd just rolled out of bed. Her eyes were bleary, her hair a mess, and she didn't seem thrilled to see me. "Hey, I've got 2 mediums for this address," I said, rattling off the numbers to be sure. She frowned, crossing her arms. "I didn't order anything. I was asleep." Her voice had that annoyed snap, like I'd ruined her night. I mumbled an apology, probably some mix-up with the system, and turned back toward my car, head down, trying to figure out how I'd explain this at the shop. Halfway there, I looked up, and my stomach flipped. That sedan, the one from the road, was parked right behind my car, blocking the driveway. Headlights off, engine still running, exhaust puffing into the cool air. Same damn car. My heart started thumping. Did they live here too? Were they with the lady, just pulling in late? Or was this tied to the order? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, way too many coincidences piling up. I kept walking, slower now, hoping they'd see me and move or say something. They didn't. I slid into my driver's seat, tossed the pizzas next to me, and turned the key. The car just sat there, a dark shape in my rear view, not budging an inch. The driveway was tight, no room to squeeze around. I nosed forward a bit, then swung around to face them, figuring they'd get the hint I needed out. Still nothing. We sat there, engines idling, headlights glaring at each other for what felt like forever, maybe 30 seconds, but it dragged like hours. My hands tightened on the wheel. That's when it clicked. Them tailing me, following me in, showing up here after that weird order, it wasn't random. This was planned. My chest went tight, a cold sweat prickling my skin, and then their doors flew open. 4 guys piled out, hoodies up, hats pulled low, faces hidden in shadow. One kept his hand jammed in his pocket, gripping something I couldn't see. They bolted toward me, fast, spreading out like they meant business. I didn't think. I just reacted. Foot slammed the gas, tires spinning as I jerked the wheel, trying to swerve past them in their car. The driveway was too narrow. My passenger side went off the edge, skidding through dirt and grass. I heard a crunch, my front end kissed a tree, slow but hard. No airbags, no major damage, but I wasn't sticking around to check. I kicked my door open, stumbled out, and ran. Footsteps pounded behind me, one of them, yelling, his voice sharp and pissed. "Get back here," he shouted, something like that. I didn't catch it all. I darted into the woods, branches snapping at my face, legs pumping like my life depended on it. Which, yeah, it probably did. The others called out to him, and after maybe 20 seconds, the chasing stopped. I kept going, weaving through the trees, lungs burning, until I was sure they'd given up. I crouched low, hands shaking as I fished my phone from my pocket and dialed 911. My voice was a mess, stammering, breathless, but I got it out. The fake order, the car, the guys, the chase. "Just send someone, please," I begged. Cops rolled up maybe 15 minutes later, lights flashing through the woods. I stumbled back to the house, guided them to the driveway. The sedan? Gone. My car? Gone too, towed off or driven away. No trace. The lady was still there, cranky as ever, swearing she didn't know a thing. The pizzas were still in the dirt where I ditched them, cold and useless. Police poked around, found tire marks and footprints, but the 4 guys had vanished into the night. My car never turned up, not then, not ever. The theory? They put in a bogus order to lure me out there, picked a random address to trap me in that driveway. What they wanted, robbery, carjacking, something worse, I'll never know. That one guy chasing me, though, he didn't want me getting away. I got lucky, plain and simple. I quit deliveries after that. Took a while to shake the jitters. Every creak in the house, every car behind me on the road, it all set me off. I'm older now, but I still think about that night. The dark driveway, those shadowed faces, the sound of my tires spinning. It was my first taste of how fast things can go sideways, and it stuck. If you're out there delivering, running late shifts, whatever, keep your eyes open. You never know who's waiting at the end of the road.